welcome. I am Stephanie Benedetto. I am the CEO and co-founder of Queen of Raw, and really excited to obviously be here today and talking to all of you. I see people from all over the world, all different kinds of companies, and probably with different perspectives. Some may be more focused on B2B. Some may be more focused on B2C. Some may have a background in sustainability. Some may have no idea what that word even means. And, hopefully we can give you here a good place to start. The conversation that I'm kind of going to focus on is going to be on the future of fashion, retail, and supply chains, post-trade wars and pandemic disruption. And my goal really is to highlight, in light of a bit of what we're already doing, some of the actionable steps that you can take today in order to start to innovate in sustainability. And the reason I say places you can start today is a lot of times when we talk about sustainability, there is so much, as you've just heard from all the incredible conversations here, there is a ton of information out there and a ton of opportunities. And everybody wants to be at some level, right, more sustainable, good for people, good for planet. But I think what often gets lost in the conversation is, how can this also be good for profit? How does being sustainable make economic sense for my business? And that is definitely where I really want to focus a lot of this conversation is, what are the places in our supply chains, in our business, in B2B or B2C, where we can start looking today at challenges we may have and how to be more sustainable, but make economic sense. Because quite honestly, unless, some people may do good for good's sake, and that's great. But when you're a business and you have stakeholders to answer to, investors, consumers, you need to make sure that you can deliver on your promises and that you can grow profitably. And so that's really kind of the frame and the lens that I hope we can put this all in. I am going to present my screen shortly. As I mentioned to everyone, I can't see the conversation and the questions, so please do feel free to interrupt during, and we can dive deeper with any questions or from any of your particular perspectives. And then, of course, at the end, we'll leave time to have a more lively conversation as well. But feel free to come off mute, off video anytime. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. Thank you so much, by the way, for joining, everyone. Most importantly, hope everyone is staying healthy and safe through all of this. And I think if any good can come out of what's going on in the world today, right, it is this awareness to what's going on and to the need to do better for people, for planet, and for profit. And I think for all of your businesses and the future of retail and fashion and textiles, this may feel in some ways like a dark period with a lot of anxiety and stress, but it's also a period of a huge amount of opportunity. And I think that's what we can really harness and start today to be the brands and retailers, the companies that not only survive, but thrive. So how are we going to do that, right? What are we talking about? To kind of frame the conversation, I like to start with a very simple, but kind of a bold question. Are you naked right now? You're obviously not, right? Because you're using fabric. Clearly, it's everywhere. You wouldn't be here if it didn't touch you in some way. It's your clothing. It's the material in your chair, the inside of your car, the carpet under your feet, right? It's in all these places, touching everyone, everywhere in the world, every single day. And textiles and fashion, it's clearly where it's supposed to be. Obviously right now, covering things like us on Zoom, but it's also where it's not supposed to be. And one of the questions that was in the chat kind of alluded to that, right? I mean, every single year we've quantified it, and over $120 billion worth of unused fabric, from raw materials to finished goods, just sits in warehouses collecting dust or gets burned or sent to landfill. And obviously with pandemic, right, disruption to our supply chains, and with even before that, the trade wars in China, this problem is occurring now more than ever, right? Closed stores, canceled orders, missed seasons and collections, huge volumes of inventory just sitting there. And it is a problem, but I carefully chose in the slide using the word opportunity because it's also a huge opportunity for you and for your business. Before we get into the opportunity, just to kind of put it into a little bit more economics, if you kind of neglect this issue right now and keep making more and worrying about, tomorrow, and you don't look at all of this waste and unused inventory, you are, for every dollar worth of unsold product, up to another $1.40 gets spent per year on warehousing costs. And so if you're not careful and you don't realize it and you don't know about it, these costs are just going to accumulate and accumulate, and you may not even know it. And of course, based on this image, you might think we're kind of just talking about scraps off a cutting room floor. But for some of our enterprise customers, this wasted inventory is actually so massive, it represents up to 15% of their bottom line in just 1 year. And what I do like to say, at that volume, waste, it's not just environmentally irresponsible, it's a CFO issue. And that's kind of where I want to focus this conversation, is on the waste and unused inventory that you may be experiencing today and what you can do with it to survive and thrive. Putting it kind of one example into perspective of how much this can cost you. Many people probably know this story. It came out in 2018 in the New York Times about H&M, and it was burning $4.3 billion in unsold clothes. And I mention this not because H&M should by any means be a scapegoat. They have done incredible work in sustainability ever since, really been leaders and pioneers and partners in innovating in this space. I call it out because it's just the first time that it really got attention in the press and people started realizing that, wow, this is a problem, and we didn't even know it. And sometimes it's a problem, because of poor inventory management systems. Sometimes it's a problem because of changing consumer demands. Sometimes because of trade wars and pandemic disruption, right? So whatever the reason, it's not necessarily your fault, but it's the actions that you can take today that will make you and dictate how you are viewed in the public eye and how this looks into tomorrow. And so, I want to kind of understand a little bit for everybody, and feel free, like I said, jump on in camera or on video if you have any questions, if you want to ask anything. But I won't spend too long on the statistics because I know many people probably know it. But clearly this wasted inventory is obviously costing us a lot of money in our businesses, but it's also hurting our people and planet. Obviously, this is an image of a river in China running red because of contamination from textile production alone. Everyone knows the number kind of, right? One cotton t-shirt, and it takes an average 700 gallons of water to produce it and an average 700 gallons of water to wash it in its lifetime, right? That's one t-shirt. We know, and we're a part of it, 2 billion shirts are sold around the world every year. I will mention one interesting statistic from the World Wildlife Fund. And that is that if we continue at the current pace of textile production, by 2025, 2/3 of the entire world's population will face shortages of fresh water and be exposed to hazardous chemicals from textile production alone. And I mention that because when you think about it, we're not talking about 100 years from now, not even talking about 50 years from now. We're talking about today, and we're talking about on our shores. And as much as, fashion and textiles is damaging at the pace at which we had been going to people and planet, it also means that fashion and textiles and the work that you all do literally has the power to solve the world's water crisis and parts of the climate crisis. And when we kind of flip it and think about it in those terms, I think we realize how massively powerful this industry is and what kind of an opportunity we have. I happen to know about this problem and have been kind of keyed into this waste issue for quite a while because I come from a family background of over 100 years in fashion and in textiles. And I won't spend too long on my family background, but here's a little picture of me with my great-grandfather, Pappy. In 1896, he came over on a ship from Austria. He landed at Ellis Island and he settled into the Lower East Side, New York. And he was an immigrant, chasing the American dream. And, he had to make a living for his family. So what did he do? He found materials and supplies nearby, old fabrics and furs and things that immigrants had brought over on the ships with them, but they weren't using anymore. And he would repurpose them by hand with minimal waste and minimal toxins because his bottom dollar depended on it. And he sold the most beautiful haute couture fashion garments to local customers. Many of his beautiful fur coats I still wear today. And it was an incredibly profitable, successful business. And he lived to a beautiful age of 105, and I grew up very close to him. So I got to hear the stories of the old school way of doing business. And of course, we all know, and we're all a part of this, right? Today's supply chains are so much more complex. Hundreds of steps across the globe, metric tons of water, chemicals, crops, and oil are used in the process. But our vision with Queen of Raw, and hopefully with what's going on in the world today, is how can we all collectively use technology to get back to the way my great-grandfather did business and make that the future supply chain? Because it truly made sense for people, it made sense for planet, and it certainly made sense for his profit. So, we talked a bit about, obviously, the problem. I'm going to dive in a little bit now to how we at Queen of Raw think about the solution, but also with an eye towards what are the challenges in adopting these kinds of solutions, and what are some of the future kind of opportunities for your business and actionable items you can take in order to start to innovate and improve in this area. Here's just a kind of a little bit of a way to visualize what we do. We built a global marketplace, so anyone from a small designer to the biggest brands and retailers in the world can buy and sell their unused textiles, right? Keep all that inventory out of landfill and help them turn what would be pollution into profit, so that all of that beautiful dead stock inventory can be tomorrow's next big, great fashion collection on the runways, when we can get back to those soon. And really our goal also is to try to inspire designers, with mood board tools and things like that, to use dead stock in their creations early on in the design process. Obviously, selling dead stocks gives designers access to materials that they otherwise wouldn't get access to. And selling dead stock for the sellers gives you money, right? And frees up all that very costly warehouse space. So that's kind of what we started Queen of Raw as, and when we first started looking at this problem. But as you can imagine, building a marketplace is great, right? It keeps this stuff out of landfill, but it actually is only slapping a Band-Aid on the problem, right? You've got waste, here, you can sell it and make money. But how do you get to the root of the problem? And how do we help big brands and retailers and all of your organizations figure out, why do we have all this waste and inefficiency in the first place? And how can we minimize that waste going forward? That's what I'm really passionate about. That's where we are going, and wanted to tease out a little bit some of the ways we're thinking about that as a business and how that ties into hopefully your business and the future supply chains. And apologies, skip slides. So in addition to the marketplace, as we started diving deeper into this problem of waste, and I saw some people in the questions alluding to having obviously unused inventory and challenges around this today more than ever, we realized that there's a reason that there is all this waste. A lot of it comes from this old school way of managing unused inventory. In many ways, a lot of the world's biggest brands and retailers, and I won't call out any names because, we all may be doing some of this, but they're still managing their inventory the way my great-grandfather did in the 1890s, right? Good old pen and paper, or maybe if we're a little bit better, as you see here, an Excel spreadsheet. And this is one of the Excel spreadsheets from one of the world's biggest fashion brands who we work with. And of course, I understand and we get why we do it and use it and do this quickly and easily. But as you get bigger and bigger, and as supply chains get faster and faster, I think the errors just compound and compound. And for this particular customer who we worked with, managing it this way, it was actually costing them 10 times what they thought they had in unused inventory on the books. And that becomes an even bigger problem, right? You know what you know, but it's kind of a little bit more challenging with what you don't know. And so that's where, in addition to our marketplace, we realized there's an opportunity to help all businesses do better today, monetize this waste, but actually figure out why they have it and how can they minimize it going forward. And so this is kind of what we have built. This is the software and tools that live behind Queen of Raw. And it allows businesses to, in real time, figure out what you have in waste, It actually integrates directly into your inventory management systems to pull all this information into one place, and it can sync back any information and updates to your inventory management system. And it'll tell you in real time things like the amount of water, the chemicals, the toxins, the yards of textiles, the amounts of SKUs of waste you've got. So you can see all of your savings from a people and planet perspective, and also, of course, your ROI and your savings from a profitability perspective. And, it's a lot of fun to obviously be working in this space because there's so much opportunity now that we've unearthed all of this, what was previously dark data for a lot of businesses, and understanding a little bit better with machine learning and with blockchain, where the waste comes from, why you've got it, what does it mean for your business, and how can we forecast and predict better into the future. I'll skip over this just in the interest of time, but we are partnered with SAP. We can integrate with them, among others, directly into your inventory system. And that's important because I think one of the challenges with sustainability is a lot of questions we get, are these kinds of solutions scalable, right? I mean, it's great to have, to sell some waste. But when you're dealing with 10 SKUs, maybe even 100 SKUs, but what about when you're a major enterprise corporation with divisions across the world, suppliers and factories and partners across the world, and you've got hundreds of thousands of SKUs of waste and in inventory moving? And that's where these kinds of syncing and automation and really support scaling and can make sustainable solutions that truly can fit your business needs at any scale, from small to the largest. And we do work with the largest in the world, from fast fashion to luxury haute couture. I'm going to show a quick little video just to change it up so you're not just hearing me. If there are any questions, like I said, please feel free to jump off mute, but then I will show a quick little video. And then I kind of want to go into the meat of kind of the future of supply chains and where we're going and the opportunities you can all harness today to help your supply chain. So here's a little video.
By the time this short video is over, $1.2 million will be wasted because excess inventory is sitting stagnant or sent to landfill and supply chains are broken. We fix that. Your entire supply chain in your control. All we need is an email to add your suppliers to the chain, and they themselves can record information in seconds. Exposing your excess inventory and waste spend all in one place, all in real time. Providing actionable data resulting in over 15% cost savings annually. Not only do we save you money, we make you money. Your excess inventory is sold with a click of a button in our global marketplace because we turn your pollution into profit.
So I'm going to stop and come off for a second sharing because I do feel like I want to be able to see everybody for a moment. Any questions before we kind of jump into the future supply chain? Okay, I see a question from Scott. Is this for fabric only or finished garments? So we started this challenge looking at waste and inefficiencies on the fabrics. And the reason we did is because I saw so many incredible solutions out there dealing in finished goods, or so I thought, right? There's the Real, Poshmark, Depop, ThreadUp, StockX, all of these businesses dealing in finished goods. But I felt like nobody was looking at the systemic issue up the chain, at the raw material waste. And I believed that if we could figure out why we have all this waste up the chain, that would inevitably help us solve the waste issues down the chain. Well, since we've been growing the business, we get this question more and more than ever before about dealing with finished garments and being able to sell large volume and being able to track it better. And so now to answer your question, Scott, yes, our technology supports finished garments. And I was going to talk about it a little bit later in the conversation, but we can actually connect the QR code or the RFID thread in that finished garment to the Queen of Raw system. And you can see either if it was made with Queen of Raw dead stock and the impact that that garment had, and continue the conversation down the chain to your end customers, all the way to the end of life and telling recyclers what to do with that garment, what it's made of, and what you as a brand want done with it. And I think that just starts to unlock up and down the chain opportunities getting to that ultimate end-to-end transparency, which I know we're all really working towards. But again, you don't know where to start. And that's why I always tell companies, looking at your waste is the perfect place to start with sustainability, because it's stuff you've already got today, right? That you're not using. You can make money selling it, and then you can start to understand why you have it and how to minimize it and be more efficient. And once you've unlocked more dollars that way, then you can put that money back into your supply chain and fixing other areas and going further up and down the chain. But I don't want people to get stuck in the mud with their businesses and not know where to start, because you have this vision of end-to-end transparency and we have to be 100% sustainable, by 2030, and you don't know where to go or what to do on day one. And to me, this is the place to start on day one. Any other questions before we kind of jump back into it? I'm happy to take it, or like I said, feel free to come off video. Let me see if I see any other ones. Cool. The other thing I will mention is in terms of how we think about it, it is a global solution. So, we want to connect the dots with our inventory, our supply chains, and raw materials, and as they move around the world. So we are on every continent and growing. And I think that's important because it helps us understand, especially with parts of the world like what's going on right now with trade wars and the coronavirus, when there are certain areas of our supply chain are impacted by disruption, how can we prepare better for it? How can we know where in the world our inventory is in real time at any given time and avoid future areas of, that may be impacted by disruption, which we inevitably will have, but we'll be better prepared because you'll have the data and you'll be armed with the information and know how to innovate in that way quickly and easily and respond to those challenges. So if there are no more questions, I will jump back in again, but and we can kind of talk now, shift a little bit into, why thinking about sustainability and circular economy is important and where the future supply chain and future technology opportunities may be for your business beyond what we focus on as well. Cool. So let's jump in again. This kind of just quickly before we jump into the next phase of the presentation, to me is kind of helpful for people who don't understand that kind of S word sustainability, or, it means so many things to so many people. And I prefer thinking of obviously circular economy, because the second word in that is economy. It's an economic principle. And it just makes sense that, as you can see in this simple but clear diagram from our friends at Common Objective, the longer that you can keep materials in circulation, the better it makes sense for your business, right? And you can eventually phase out waste. And you could also, in theory, start to phase out as much inputs as you need and just keep reusing, renting, repairing, recycling, reselling, all those rewords to the materials that are already out there. And the beauty of that is that for your businesses, these all the rent, reuse, repair, redesign, resell, this opens up a wealth of new business opportunities for your business in the future. These are very valuable economic opportunities and business models that you as a business, whether you're small or large, can start to adopt today, create more transparency and relationships with your end consumers, and also unlock huge dollars by getting in on these games and taking advantage of these opportunities. So again, you're making more money by getting into these new areas and opportunities while also doing good for people and planet. And how can your stakeholders and your consumers or anyone say no to that, right? It truly becomes a win-win-win. And so, I think this is the kind of business models that we should be thinking about in the future, and building around this and connecting industries, not just fashion and apparel, although that's what we're here talking about in retail, but other industries too, right? I mean, automotive, aviation, computer electronics, consumer goods, they all use materials and textiles. Why can't they benefit from this process and using some of what we're not using, and we use some of what they're not using? All interesting value adds and opportunities, I think, that we should be thinking about. So kind of why does any of this matter now, right? It's profitable clearly for you to get involved in these sustainable business models, thinking about selling waste, thinking about getting in on reuse, resell, recirculation, recycling, all the things we just talked about. But it's also clearly good, as we started this conversation and why we're here, for people and planet and sustainability, right? And if you have that strong commitment to sustainability, the thing with social media and what's going on in the world today is people are going to remember. They're going to remember the acts that you and your business took during challenging times. And they're going to support the good acts. And they're definitely going to call out the bad acts. And so it is more important probably now more than ever when everyone's at home, on Zoom, on their phones, on social, to making these kinds of commitments and doing good. Here just kind of shows you a little highlight where we have already had a global impact. We've saved well over 1 billion gallons of water, and we're just getting started. And I mentioned that not just because we're really proud of that. It's actually enough clean water for 1.43 million people around the world to drink for 3 years, which is awesome. But also because it shows that the small acts that you and your business can take have a huge, massive impact when we add them all up. And so for all of that unused inventory, even just taking a portion of that and starting to monetize it, to figure out how to minimize it, it adds up and it has a big impact. And those are numbers that you can quantify and you can share with your stakeholders and your customers. Another question we get a lot is, well, is there a demand for this? Do people want all this unused stuff and sustainable stuff? Well, at Queen of Raw, we haven't spent anything really yet on PR, marketing, or advertising, and we have well over 250,000 buyers and sellers, and we're growing. So, and we've been growing rapidly through COVID. We've seen 123%, I think, increase in number of transactions and massive growth in our user base with no additional spend. So there's an opportunity here with e-commerce, with digital, with sustainability to be able to make more money, but also do good for people and planet. There is a huge demand for it. And we've rescued millions of yards of fabric. So, whether you have 1 yard or 1 million yards, whether it's raw materials or finished goods, there are opportunities and ways people can help, whether you want to sell it, whether you want to donate it, whether you want to work with one of our recycling partners for responsible disposal. All of this is possible now that we've built this ecosystem and we're all here together to help. I'll just touch on this really quickly because it's where I think we're going with future supply chains. Of course, selling dead stock is great for you as selling it, making money. But why should big businesses turn around and buy dead stock? And I mention this because a lot of people don't automatically think about it, but some of the world's biggest brands and retailers have bought large volume dead stock from us. Why would they? Well, when you use waste and unused inventory, you get discounted price points, right? Stuff that's readily available away from areas impacted by disruption. And you're able to tell a sustainable story to your end customers. And that, I think, increases conversion rates exponentially for your selling of your goods. So the future supply chain and where I think we're all going through this pandemic is definitely one that is going to be more on demand, more local, and more sustainable. And this is just one of the ways that you can meet that where we're going and get ahead of all the other brands and retailers who may not yet be thinking about this. If you can truly innovate today, I think it not only means you're going to survive, but you'll come out a massive super winner with everything going on. So that's where I think we're going. And, I'm throwing up here, obviously, the slide of are brands actually doing this, right? Do brands and retailers, the larger ones, care from fast fashion to luxury? Well, they do. Here, brands and retailers across industries and around the world, and here's just a sampling of them, they've made commitments, right, to reduce their waste by 2030. And I think what's interesting and powerful is not only have they drawn that line in the sand and said, we care and this matters and we're making these commitments, but it's also good to know that they're going to face increasing exposure to significant liability with all the recent changes in the laws, recycling laws, EPR policies, all of these shifts and changes that are going on if they don't adopt innovative and sustainable solutions. And so that's, it's not just about being sustainable, and it's not just about selling waste and making money, or it's also about changes in the laws and public perception. Here's an example in case anyone is based in New York that we are a founding member of. It's the New York Circular City Initiative. We came together with New York City government, with the enterprise corporations you see here, including H&M and Unilever, and a number of investors and non-for-profits. And we said, okay, what does it look like to make New York City circular in the coming years? And we drafted a publicly available white paper to show how much money can be made and saved and how many jobs can be created just by the city going circular. And that's one city in one part of the world. So if anyone wants, please feel free to take a look at it. It's just a showing of people coming together, even today, even with everything going on in the world, to make these kinds of commitments, to work towards changes in the laws, but also to show the economics and the profitable opportunity of doing this. The challenge then becomes, if these laws are going to change, how do you as a business know if you're even complying with these changes in the laws, right? And that's where tools and technologies and softwares like ours can help. Because it can actually give you, and we work with the partners, some of whom you see here, we actually give you reports to show you, here's the amount of water, the toxins, the energy, and the dollars you've saved by the actions you've taken. We can map it to the United Nations SDGs. And it's something you can show your stakeholders and potential lawmakers to help offset that coming legal liability. Because we don't just want to slap businesses with millions of dollars in liability in the books. We want you to have solutions and things you can do today that will make sense and have a significant impact. And so I'm going to close, and then I want to come off and we can chat a little bit, but I want to close with a few things because I often get asked, in addition to the future supply chain and things we can do today to look at, what are some other hot and interesting topics of what you're seeing in the space of sustainability and supply chains? So I kind of wanted to call out a few friends of ours, some who are speaking here at this event, but that I think are pretty cool. One is our friends Ventana. They are doing really interesting 3D visualizations of materials. And I think we're just starting to see, as we're digitizing more supply chains and as we're going through everything we're going through right now, and people are sourcing at home, designing at home, right? Understanding and knowing, using computer vision, what a material feels like digitally and through the phone, and how it can actually be manipulated and applied to a product without actually having to prototype and make that product, and really getting down to the characteristics and the nuances of the textiles themselves. I think that is a huge opportunity and a game changer. It's something we are looking at in Queen of Raw, that how you can actually integrate into your CAD software, visualize the materials in 3Ds and design with them before you even have to purchase, getting rid of a lot of time and resources spent in sampling, prototyping, swatching, and all the obvious. I think that's a really exciting and unique opportunity. Here is an image of the Gigabot 3D printer from our friends at Re3D. And I think 3D printing and what it does for sustainability and sampling and production is fascinating. We at Queen of Raw do take recycled filaments, and we have 3D printing partners who can 3D print 100% biodegradable materials. They're totally durable, usable as textiles for fashion, but buried in the ground, it's gone in 6 months, zero traces. And the 3D printing process itself is very sustainable. So I think that's really interesting and an area that fashion and apparel is just starting to unlock. And the final thing, they're here today, is our friends at Eon, and giving products digital IDs and connecting, like I mentioned, that RFID thread or that QR code to the journey and the story through Queen of Raw or elsewhere of how that product moves. That kind of intelligence and information, I think, is a game changer. The last thing I'll say, and then I'll come off of slides, is, do people care? Well, the latest McKinsey report, and if anyone still doesn't believe, I think it just showed more than ever, consumer expectations of brands are dominated by these social and environmental responsibilities. They care about the health of employees, how much the workers are paid, the impact on the environment, e-commerce and pricing. They care about this, and they're willing to act with their dollars. But it doesn't mean that a sustainable product automatically has to cost more money. Using waste and dead stock, you can actually create a like quality good at a discount to what you're currently selling it at, and it's still sustainably minded. So I think that there are cool business models here that will help you engage better with your consumers in this area, places you can act today. And I think one of our enterprise customers saw well over 3 times the conversion rate in their online D2C business just by talking about the sustainable initiatives and work with dead stock that they were doing. So it's powerful numbers. So I'll put my information up, and then I'm going to come off. Obviously in everything going on today, we want to empower and inspire people that you can and will change the world. My great-grandfather did coming to America wanting a better world for his family, and so do I. I obviously want my kids to have clean water to drink, clothes that aren't toxic to wear, and a planet to live on. And I do believe together that we can solve these challenges and build the better tomorrow. So I'm going to stop sharing, and would definitely love to chat with anybody. Come off, let's ask questions, let's make this conversational in any way. If there's anything I can help as you're thinking about how you position what you're working on, how you even start. If you're in it, but you don't know how to improve it, please feel free to jump on camera, jump off mute and ask any questions, or put it in the chat. Now I can see the chat if you want. Curious for everyone who's here, obviously, if people are more on the B2B side or more on the B2C side, are there challenges in what you're going through right now, pain points or places where you don't know how to go find a solution? The beauty of, I think, the sustainable community and what we're all here is truly that it is just that, a community, and a very large and growing and powerful community. More and more investment dollars are going to innovative businesses and sustainability. More and more grants and research are being done. So, we're proud to know and be a part of this community and be able to see where everyone is growing and going to. So yeah, please, any questions, any challenges, you can put them in chat, come off and we'll take it Q&A. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the kind words. Yeah, if we're not out there storytelling, if we're not passionate about what we're doing, if we're not building for that better tomorrow, then, what are we doing here? And that's just it. I've always thought of fashion as one of the most powerful industries in the world, connecting people on a political, social, economic, deeply personal level. And, with what we're going through right now, it's a huge opportunity for retail to build for that better tomorrow and do it better, because in so many ways, what we were doing was unsustainable. So it truly is, I think, a time period of opportunity. But understandably, I'm sure a lot of businesses out there, as we kind of mentioned, you're worried about how are you going to survive today? How are we going to, pay our workers? How are we going to manage all of these canceled orders, closed stores, missed seasons and collections? So hopefully you've gotten some actionable and tangible advice of what you can think and work on today. Please do feel free to reach out. We're here to help. My community is here to help. And if there's anything we haven't thought about that's a challenge for you, but something we can start to think about connecting the dots, we would absolutely welcome it. Celeste, thank you so much for the kind words and appreciate it. Anyone want to feel, like I said, I'm going to stick around in the room. Would love if anyone wants to jump off, obviously, and dive deeper. We have the room for a little bit, and we can certainly, I saw some people from Asia who might be working in textile manufacturing side, some people from in the UK, maybe on the brand and retailer side. Definitely let us know in the chats who you are and what you're building, and happy to help tailor a little bit how we're thinking about it, for sure. But otherwise, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and really excited to help in any way as we grow towards this future. Question, Chris. Hey, Chris, my buddy. Do you feel that the COVID lull in retail shutdowns will increase supply and receptivity to the platform? That's a great question. So, before COVID and pandemic disruption, I first started looking at this issue of waste and unused inventory in 2014 with my core team. And we'd go knock on the doors in the fashion district of all these large brands and retailers. And, they kind of got it, but they felt of it as a nice to have and not a have to have. And there were a few early adopters and big brands and retailers who understood what we were doing, saw the economic potential, and who came on board early on. And we're really proud to still be working with them. But there were plenty of no's, and like any startup, right, when you're innovating in a new space or doing things differently, plenty of no's, plenty of old school way of doing things, and for plenty that this was not top of mind. Well, fast forward to today, and I'm very fortunate that a number of those no's have since turned into yeses, that, they realize now more than ever the need to digitally innovate in this space, to avoid future areas that may be impacted by disruption, to prepare for this future supply chain, and the need to make money. And quite honestly, right now with all these canceled orders, there's a ton of inventory out there. You're sitting on a gold mine. And how can we monetize it and then take that money and put it back into preparing you for that future supply chain we talked about and what the future of tomorrow looks like? And so I think if anything good can come out of this COVID pandemic, it's people having woken up to these issues. And in some ways, for big brands and retailers, it forced the hand. They have to innovate today to survive and thrive. And, I think it did. It sped up what the fashion industry was was already getting in some ways to an unsustainable place by all definitions of that word. But because of COVID, it really sped it up. And we've seen massive growth through this. I think people are more comfortable shopping, doing e-commerce, sourcing online, designing digitally, right? And while things are a little bit slower in certain areas, it gives businesses, especially bigger businesses, an opportunity to do things that they didn't have time to do before, to build up their innovation departments and thinking about the supply chain of the future, to start to digitize their waste and other areas where they hadn't digitized before. And by doing that, it's something that they probably wouldn't have thought about, maybe not even for another 5 to 10 years, but they have to now, because it is a matter of survival today, but it also means coming out and the thrive tomorrow. I think I also read an interesting article in the latest McKinsey report showing about the super winners who dominated in value creation and in dollars through COVID. And at the top of that was I think it was Nike leading, Inditex and Zara and LVMH. And just looking at what they talk about, what they're doing in sustainability, how they're thinking about things, there is a reason that some of these businesses are able to, through this economic downturn and period of uncertainty, dominate in value creation and build with an eye towards the future and actually grow, not shrink. And so I think COVID has opened up again some opportunities for adoption of our platform, but also for this movement in general, and opportunities in what you're all working on and doing to innovate in this space, for sure. Thanks, Chris, for the question. Any other questions, or anyone want to come off on video? I know it's always on Hopin a little bit of a funny, but feel free. We can chat. We can dive deeper into a little bit of how you're thinking about it. One thing I will mention while you think about it, if you have a question, is calculating sustainability. Right? As much as that S word sustainability means so many things to so many people, and it's very challenging to define, figuring out the metrics and the calculations you need can feel daunting, and it can feel scary. I will highly recommend, and it's one of the reasons they've dominated also in value creation. Look at Caring. They have a great sustainability report on their website that gives you literally the blueprint for how their business model has adopted sustainability and how much money they saved and made by doing it. And it's fabulous, a long, really well-researched read that can help others see, whether you're small or large, how you do this and the value that gets created by doing it. So, but it's not always easy to know how to quantify it. And so we've spent a lot of time with MIT and with, talking to the United Nations and others on what are the measures that truly matter for quantifying this? What are the industry reports? Yeah, the name of the brand is Kering, Kering. They're the parent company by Francois Pinault that owns Gucci and McQueen and a bunch of other brands. I think Puma and others. But knowing how you quantify, you're welcome, Vidya, but knowing how to quantify this stuff is challenging. But that's where businesses and technologies like ours can help businesses. We've done the work, we've done the research, we've done the algorithms. You don't need to worry about it. Let us deliver you the report backed by the research and analysis to show things like the water, the toxins, the energy, and the dollars saved, and map it to the SDGs. So you know how as a business you can measure and be able to understand whether you're doing better or worse in certain areas and how and why you're improving. Because it is challenging, and it's nothing that one whole business can take on all of themselves. And you need to be experts in what you're doing, whether you're selling textiles or manufacturing goods, or you're a brand or retailer selling the goods. You are an expert in what you do, and you need to do that best now more than ever, for sure. Any other questions too while we're chatting? Happy to take them. I often get asked about too, as we're thinking through some of the other companies that I think are doing a really good job. We just mentioned them as one of the ones dominating value creation, but it goes without saying Nike has obviously done an incredible job too in how they're thinking about innovation in the actual textiles and materials that we use, in how they're thinking about their supply chains and how they're thinking about it, treatment of people and planet and quantifying the metrics. I think their whole collection of shoes out of dead stock and recycled materials was just awesome, and it did really well with their consumers. So, I think it's just great use cases and examples showing where success and value creation in this can happen. And again, tying it to the profitability and the economic opportunity is massive. But not everyone is a Nike, and that's okay too. But leveraging partnerships and technology partners and startup partners and those innovating in textiles or supply chain and all of this it's how we think about the future, and it's how we all do better in your business and in ours, for sure. So we would not, be where we are today if not for incredible partners and partnerships as well that help us all become better experts in what we're doing, and do better, and to build toward this greater kind of future and where we're all going, for sure. Again, it might seem like a period of darkness right now, but I truly hope everyone can harness it as opportunity, because there is massive opportunity and excitement there. And I'm really, unless we started this conversation, are you naked right now? Unless we're all going to go naked, right, in the future, we are going to be wearing clothes. Just how we consume them and what we consume is going to shift. And I think a fun fact, although in some areas of retail, sales have been down, in clothing, right, pants might be down, but the sales of shirts have actually been up. Thank you, Zoom. So, how we look, how we present ourselves, how we make those goods, how we buy those goods, it's all in this fascinating tipping point and beautiful opportunity to do things differently. Please feel free to reach out at any time. We're here to help. We want to empower and position your business on any part of the supply chain and help you connect the dots with all the incredible players and speakers you're hearing here today, because it's all with an eye towards, I think, the future, which is really powerful. Some of the world's greatest businesses have come out of periods of recession and challenges and uncertainties. And I think that's where you and we all are today. So it's a good opportunity. But it's been great. And thank you all so much. Really thrilled to have been here. Thank you for, sharing what you're doing and the questions and the emails. I think that's what it takes. And we're excited to all be a part of the solution together.